Want to know what's absolutely insane? While Tony Khan is watching his company crumble with Jon Moxley literally walking away from AEW, Triple H just made a phone call that could change everything. And I'm not talking about some random call, I'm talking about the call that involves Roman Reigns showing up on Raw for the first time in what feels like forever, and the possibility of a Shield reunion that nobody saw coming. But here's what's going to make you furious: the dirt sheets have been lying to you about what's really happening behind the scenes, and when you find out the truth, you're going to lose your mind. Let me hit you with some facts that are going to blow your mind right now. Roman Reigns has been the tribal chief, the head of the table, the face of WWE for years. But something changed. Something massive shifted in the wrestling world that forced Triple H to pick up that phone and make a decision that could either save WWE's future or completely destroy the legacy that Roman has built. And it all connects to what's happening with Jon Moxley over in AEW. Let's talk about Moxley first because this situation is wild. Jon Moxley, the guy who left WWE, burned every bridge, talked endless amounts of trash about the company, and became AEW's biggest star, is reportedly done. Not just done with a storyline, not just taking time off. We're hearing that Moxley is genuinely frustrated with the direction of AEW and has been in serious conversations about his future. Now, before you jump in the comments and say I'm making this up, ask yourself this question: when was the last time Moxley looked genuinely happy in an AEW ring? Drop your answer in the comments because I want to know if you've noticed what I've noticed. The reports coming out of AEW are absolutely devastating. Backstage morale is at an all-time low. Tony Khan is making booking decisions that make absolutely zero sense. Talent is frustrated. Ratings are falling off a cliff. And Jon Moxley, the guy who was supposed to be the cornerstone of that company, the guy who was supposed to prove that you could be a megastar without WWE, is ready to walk away. Let that sink in for a second. Now here's where it gets interesting, and here's where Triple H comes into play. Triple H has been playing four-dimensional chess since he took over creative in WWE. He brought back Bray Wyatt before his tragic passing. He elevated stars like Cody Rhodes, Gunther, and LA Knight. He's been systematically fixing everything that was broken during the previous regime. And now, with Roman Reigns and the Bloodline story reaching what seems like a natural conclusion, Triple H is looking at the landscape of professional wrestling and seeing an opportunity that's too good to pass up. Roman Reigns returning to Raw ring action isn't just some casual appearance. This is strategic. This is calculated. Roman has been on SmackDown for years, building the most dominant championship reign in modern WWE history. 700+ days as Universal Champion. He's beaten everyone. He's conquered everyone. But now, with Cody Rhodes as the champion and the bloodline fractured, what's next for Roman? That's the question everyone's been asking, and Triple H has the answer. The Shield reunion rumors have been floating around for months, but everyone dismissed them because Dean Ambrose, or Jon Moxley as we know him now, was locked into AEW. But what if he's not anymore? What if those reports about Moxley being done with AEW are true? What if Triple H made that call to Moxley and said, "It's time to come home"? What if the reason Roman is showing up on Raw is because the Shield is about to reunite for one final run? Think about the storytelling possibilities here. Seth Rollins, the man who betrayed the Shield, the man who broke up the most dominant faction in WWE history, has been on Raw carrying the company on his back. He's dealt with injuries, he's dealt with setbacks, but he's remained loyal to WWE and loyal to Raw. Now imagine Roman Reigns walking through that curtain onto Raw. Imagine the tension between Seth and Roman. Imagine these two former brothers staring each other down in the middle of that ring. But it doesn't stop there. Because if Moxley comes back, if Jon Moxley returns to WWE, the pop is going to be absolutely nuclear. The fans who watched the Shield dominate WWE from 2012 to 2014 have been begging for this reunion for a decade. We've gotten teases. We've gotten brief moments. But we've never gotten a full, proper Shield reunion with all three members at the top of their game, with the experience they have now, with the star power they possess in 2025. Here's a question for the comments: do you think Jon Moxley would actually come back to WWE, or is his pride too big to ever return? Be honest in the comments because I know this is going to be controversial. Now let's talk about why this makes sense from every possible angle. From WWE's perspective, the Shield reunion would be the biggest storyline in wrestling. It would dominate headlines. It would bring back lapsed fans. It would spike ratings through the roof. Raw is moving to Netflix in some markets and expanding its global reach, and you're telling me that Triple H wouldn't want the Shield as his main event program? That's money in the bank. From Roman's perspective, this gives him a fresh storyline after exhausting every possibility with the Bloodline. He's beaten the Usos. He's beaten Solo Sikoa. He's beaten Sami Zayn. He's beaten Kevin Owens. He's beaten GUSO in every way possible. The Tribal Chief story has been told. Now it's time for the next chapter, and reuniting with his brothers from the Shield is the perfect evolution of his character. From Seth's perspective, imagine the conflicted emotions. This is the man who destroyed the Shield with a steel chair to the back. This is the man who chose his own ambition over brotherhood. But now, years later, can these wounds heal? Can Seth and Roman coexist? Can they trust each other? That's compelling television right there. And from Moxley's perspective, if the reports are true and he's genuinely done with AEW, where else is he going to go? Japan? He's already done that. Independent scene? He's too big for that now. Impact? Come on. WWE is the only place that makes sense if he wants to be on the biggest stage with the biggest spotlight. And let's be real, as much as Moxley talked trash about WWE when he left, that was 5 years ago. People change. Situations change. Maybe he's realized that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. But here's what's going to make you angry, and here's what the dirt sheets aren't telling you. This whole situation has been in the works for months. Triple H didn't just wake up yesterday and decide to call Moxley. This has been a long-term plan. The reason Roman's contract situation has been so quiet? It's because they've been negotiating a new deal that involves this exact storyline. The reason Moxley's been looking miserable in AEW? It's because he's known for weeks that he might be heading back to WWE. The wrestling media has been feeding you BS about Roman potentially retiring, about Moxley being AEW for life, about the Shield reunion being impossible. They've been protecting AEW, they've been protecting their sources, and they've been keeping you in the dark about what's really happening. And that should make you furious because you deserve to know the truth. Let me break down the timeline of how this could actually happen. Roman appears on Raw in the coming weeks. He cuts a promo about his future, about what's next for the tribal chief. Seth Rollins comes out. There's tension. There's history. They're about to come to blows when suddenly, the music hits. The Shield's music hits. And Jon Moxley walks out for the first time in 5 years as a WWE superstar. The place would explode. Social media would break. Wrestling fans around the world would lose their minds. It would be the biggest return in wrestling history since Cody Rhodes came back at WrestleMania 38. And Triple H knows this. That's why he made the call. Now, I know some of you are skeptical. I know some of you think this is too good to be true. And maybe you're right. Maybe Moxley stays in AEW and rides that sinking ship all the way to the bottom. Maybe Roman decides he's done with full-time wrestling and only appears at major shows. Maybe Seth gets injured again and this whole plan falls apart. But the fact that we're even having this conversation, the fact that these rumors are swirling, the fact that Triple H is making moves behind the scenes, tells you that something big is coming. Here's another question for the comments section. If the Shield reunites, who should they feud with first? The Bloodline? Judgment Day? A reunited Evolution? Give me your fantasy booking in the comments. Let's also address the elephant in the room, which is AEW. Tony Khan has to be absolutely panicking right now. If Moxley leaves, that's a massive blow to AEW's credibility. Moxley was supposed to be the guy who proved you could leave WWE and be just as successful, if not more successful, somewhere else. He was supposed to be the face of the revolution. He was supposed to be the alternative. But if he goes crawling back to WWE, what does that say about AEW? What does that say about Tony Khan's ability to book talent? What does that say about the future of that company? And before the AEW defenders jump down my throat in the comments, I'm not saying AEW is dying. I'm not saying AEW is going out of business. But you cannot deny that losing Jon Moxley would be catastrophic for them. He's one of their top stars. He's one of their most respected locker room leaders. He's one of the few people in that company who can cut a promo that feels real and authentic. Losing him would be like WWE losing Roman Reigns or Seth Rollins. It's a hit you don't recover from easily. And this is where Triple H's genius comes into play. He's not just thinking about WWE's present. He's thinking about WWE's future. He's thinking about legacy. He's thinking about what people are going to remember 10 years from now. And a proper Shield reunion, with all 3 members back together at the peak of their powers, creating magic one more time, is the kind of moment that defines careers and defines eras. Think about the matches they could have. The Shield versus the Bloodline in a massive War Games match. The Shield versus Judgment Day in a triple threat tag team ladder match. Roman, Seth, and Moxley versus Gunther, Giovanni Vinci, and Ludwig Kaiser in a battle of dominant factions. The possibilities are literally endless, and every single one of them would be a guaranteed show stealer. But beyond the matches, think about the storytelling. Think about the promos. Think about the emotion. These are 3 guys who came up together, who built WWE's future together, who went their separate ways and became megastars in their own right. Bringing them back together isn't just fan service. It's the culmination of over a decade of storytelling. It's brothers finding their way back to each other. It's redemption, it's forgiveness, it's everything that makes professional wrestling great. Here's what really grinds my gears though. The fact that we've been begging for this reunion for years, and it took AEW potentially falling apart for it to become a reality. We shouldn't have needed Jon Moxley to be miserable in another company for Triple H to make this happen. WWE should have found a way to make this work years ago, but I guess better late than never, right? One more question for you: would you rather see the Shield reunite as faces or as heels? Because that's going to determine the entire trajectory of this storyline, and I want to know what you think. Now let's talk about the business side of this for a second, because this isn't just about creating good television. This is about money. This is about merchandise sales. This is about ticket sales. This is about global expansion. A Shield reunion would sell more merchandise than anything WWE has done since the peak of John Cena. Those Shield shirts would fly off the shelves. Action figures would sell out instantly. Video games would see a spike in sales. This is a money printing machine, and Triple H knows it. And for Roman Reigns specifically, this gives him leverage for his next contract negotiation. If he's going to be part of the biggest storyline in wrestling, if he's going to be leading the Shield into battle one more time, he can command whatever price he wants. He's already the highest paid wrestler in WWE history, but this would take him to another level entirely. The really interesting part is how this affects the entire WWE roster. If the Shield reunites and dominates Raw, what happens to everyone else? Do guys like Drew McIntyre, Damian Priest, and Finn Balor get pushed aside? Do they become afterthoughts in the wake of the Shield's reunion? Or does Triple H book this intelligently and use the Shield to elevate the entire roster by putting on incredible matches with everyone? I'm betting on the latter because Triple H has proven that he understands how to book dominant factions without burying everyone else. Look at what he did with the Bloodline. Roman was on top for over 2 years, but guys like Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, and Cody Rhodes all came out of that storyline looking like bigger stars. That's the sign of good booking. That's the sign of someone who understands that rising tides lift all boats. So here's where we stand right now. Roman Reigns is returning to Raw ring action. Jon Moxley is reportedly done with AEW and looking at his options. Triple H has made the call. And the Shield reunion that we've all been dreaming about for years might actually be happening. This isn't a drill. This isn't a fantasy booking scenario. This is real life, and it's happening right in front of our eyes. The wrestling world is about to change forever. Drop a comment right now telling me if you think the Shield reunion is actually happening or if I'm completely wrong about everything. Hit that like button if you want to see Roman, Seth, and Moxley back together. Share this video with every wrestling fan you know because they need to hear about this. And subscribe to Wrestling World CC because we're going to be covering every single development of this story as it unfolds. The Tribal Chief is coming to Raw. The King Slayer is waiting. And the Death Rider might be on his way home. This is going to be insane.